Hello and welcome to ThePrint. Today we have former Punjab PCC chief and very senior Congress leader, Mr. Sunil Jakhar, with us. Thank you so much for joining us. My first question, just straight off looking at the election results, the Aam Aadmi Party, which was effectively known as an outsider party, has got a huge mandate. To understand, how do you view these results? Was it a vote against the Congress or one for the Aam Aadmi Party?
It's basically a vote for the change, as they had rightly predicted. People wanted change, and it's a vote also at the same time vote against Congress and against the system. And we had also gauged this. It has, though the results have come as a shock, but what was the undercurrent was that even we had gauged it. We, when I say we, most of our Congress MLAs were kind of anxious about this kind of situation unfolded when they wanted to change Captain Amarinder Singh. And the trigger point for all that was when the judgment about sacrilege case, this Bargadi issue, Guru Granth Sahib's sacrilege case came, and that judgment rubbished the report of special investigation team and passed very strong strictures against Congress government. That's when they all got worried, because till the last moment they were expecting some positive results, that those culprits or whosoever was involved in those sacrilege instances would be brought to book. But that was the point. And then they start clamoring about change. The Congress High Command did realize the need for change. And in the process, though we figured out the disease, we diagnosed the disease properly, the medicine given for that disease turned out to be worse than the disease itself. We lost in the bargain a very good opportunity. If we had realized that people want change, badlav, then we tried to pass off badli as a badlav. We changed the man, but not the whole image of the system didn't change. We brought in, like you change a SHO of a police station. That doesn't stop corruption there. It turned out to be that the alternative or what we brought in, the change, was worse than the person we had changed. This we lost the chance. We could have provided a good, honest, clean image person whom people believed in.
But just a question, to cut you short and ask you. So you're saying we figure out the disease, but the medicine was even worse than the disease. Could you explain this further in terms of who exactly you're talking about?
It was basically corruption against corruption, the corrupt regime. People wanted an honest, working government. And here we brought in, and principally, people might accuse Rahul Gandhi that why did he bring in this guy, Channi, as a chief minister. But if you look at the fact, like he was there looking at the fundamentals, fundamental issue was that you are removing a Maharaja and you bringing in a common man, a man from a very humble background, a poor man. This is what he was presumed to be, a poor man from a humble background who would empathize with the poor, like who would understand the problems of the poor. And he's an honest guy. And on top of that, he also happened to be a Dalit. So 3 parameters, he fulfilled all 3 of them, and it should have been a winning formula. But within 10 days of his, or 10 or 15 days of his acquiring this position, he was caught red-handed with his hand in the till. This finding 10 crore rupees is not really something which could be wished away and could be attributed to the ED does it all the time. ED raids Mamata Banerjee's nephews or every opposition leader. But it shattered the narrative which Congress party or Rahul Gandhi wanted to build, that we are not that Maharaja's Congress. We are a common man's Congress, and we will provide you with a better alternative. This alternative, after this money was recovered from him, he was proved to be, his honesty was not even suspect. He was seen as a corrupt, even worse, more corrupt than the previous regime. So
of Captain Amarinder,
all the narrative got demolished. We have
just saying of the previous regime of Captain Amarinder, just saying was worse.
Yes, exactly. This was worse than that. That fellow, at least Captain Saab, had a charisma, an aura. This had nothing going for him. He had 3 qualifications: that he was supposed to be poor, that he was honest, and that he was Dalit. Out of these 3 pillars on which this entire facade was built, 2 of them demolished. Like all
you call it a facade? You call it a facade?
A narrative. It's a narrative. Now it has turned out that it is a facade. All these, that I was a rickshaw puller and I was putting up tents for weddings and functions, and I was selling this or that. I was selling patakas, and that I can milk a goat. These kind of antics really kind of made Congress a butt of ridicule. And he was doing it to get over his own guilt conscience that I'm not a poor and I'm being projected as a poor. So he wanted to prove himself a poor person by doing these antics, I think, which also boomeranged. He went overboard doing all these things. But eventually, it demolished this narrative which was being built. This narrative got shattered that they are trying to hoodwink or fool the people of Punjab. That was the main issue. Our narrative got demolished. Ishaji, when I was given the assignment to be campaign in charge for the campaign in Punjab for these elections, I had a meeting with all these people there, all our in charge, and Channi and Sidhu and all the lot, MPs there. I said, what kind of a campaign do you want to build? What should be the narrative? Do you want it to be a personality specific? Because in 2017, our campaign was built around Captain Amarinder Singh. And it was, even his detractors would say that, yes, he is the one who led Congress to majority at that time. Do you want the similar thing? He said, no, we want the leadership is going to be a combined leadership. It will be Channi, Sidhu, and they also included my name. I don't know why, what prompted them to do that. And the other option, I said, either we build this campaign around the issue or we build it around a vision. They said, no, it has to be issue-based and on a vision-based, no personality cult. But eventually, 10 days down the line, it was turned around that not even a combined thing, it will be only and only Channi. It will be focused on Channi. So our entire thrust got demolished. That here is a guy whom they are projecting as the face of Congress. This is the change which is being promised. And people virtually said, is this the change you are promising us? Like he was a cheap replica of the previous regime, like something which you buy from a Chinese made kind of a thing, which is cheap, which breaks down the very first day you put it on a charger. That's what happened to us.
You used some very strong words recently in your tweets. You said, he was a liability and that it was his own greed that got him down. In fact, recently you also said hand in the till. The reason for speaking out now vis-a-vis earlier, and do you think it was mainly Channi which brought the party down?
The main reason, I told you, this was our focus. Our campaign was built around him. If the campaign has been built around our idea or something, maybe it would not have mattered that one of the ministers or one of the guy has been caught. That's okay. But now your main guy whom you have brought in as a knight in shining armor, and he's going to be the savior of Congress here. He's going to undo all the anti-incumbency which we were facing. It's not that everything was hunky-dory. The need for change had a reason. People wanted a change. But nobody wanted this kind of a change. Not even congressmen wanted this change. And talking beforehand, it was decided, it was a fait accompli. Like it was just out of all this process which was going on about selection of a chief minister. First, it was a resolution that anybody whom the High Command makes is fine with us. Then some wise guy decided, no, there has to be a vote. Then the vote was taken. I happened to secure the largest number of votes, 42 out of 79. And then they said, no, a Hindu cannot be made a chief minister. Then they wanted to make Sidhu. Then that was changed to Sukhjinder Randhawa. And eventually, all of a sudden, they say it's going to be this. So where was the time to say, once a decision has been taken, you don't expect me to go around then criticizing at that time. So when I did meet Mr. Rahul Gandhi, he called me over. I happened to travel with him from here to Delhi, and next day met him. And he wanted me to join the Congress government. He says, Sunil, please. That was very gracious of him. Was not even MLA then. And he says, join the Congress, be the deputy chief minister. We want you involved here. I said, no, I do not accept this person as my leader. He said, why? I said, because I know him. I just cannot work with this fellow. I carry, I don't want to be kind of discredited being associated with him. This was the image I have of him. That's why I'm using these words, because I know him personally.
And you had said this at the time then?
At the time, but by then the decision had been taken. He says, but no, the party needs you. I said, I'm not going anywhere. I am very much a congressman, though I disagree with your choice. He may be a leader to you, but I know him what he is. And it's not only in the closed room I have said it. In one of the interviews, 2 or 3 days, even before I met Rahulji, on national TV, if you don't want to name me, I can name him. It was Srinivas Jain. He asked me, what do you think of this fellow? And I have that, I can send you that video. I said, I don't expect much out of him, but I hope that eventually the chair will make the man. But it seems now that the chair didn't help him anything. What he has done is brought ridicule to the institution of chief ministership, and especially at Punjab chief ministership. Maybe Lalu Yadav can get away with milking buffaloes in Bihar, but aspirational youth of Punjab, and you are selling them these gimmicks that you can milk a bakri. Come on, please. This is the limits. He has made Congress a butt of ridicule. So I did say, but after that, in middle of life, again in Ludhiana, when he was declared as the chief minister's face for after 2022, then also Rahul wanted to talk to me. Let's talk separately. I said, no, now we are engaged in a battle. Now it is the time to discuss my hesitations or my reservations. We are engaged in battle. Let's win this battle, and then I will tell you my reservation and what do I think about him. It's not the time.
I want to go back to the time when because we also spoke then at the time, when you said there was a majority of the vote for you,
yeah.
And there were different, the thing is, in Punjab, there's been different people who have, it's either been the Gandhi family or Mr. Rawat, or you also refer to someone as a PBI lady. Many people are saying that's Miss Soni. So do you think this multiplicity of people, let's say, who are calling the shots has also resulted in, let's say, the party's downfall at present?
There should have been a proper succession plan. Even in a company, you decide if this CEO is going to retire or the MD is going to retire, who's going to head it, and they have a full succession line. You don't wait till the time you are removing. Though this happened in a situation where there was not much time left, it was just too close. It shouldn't have happened in the first place. If the change had to be done, it should have been done a year ago or maybe a year and a half ago when this Rawat fellow came to Punjab. But that aside, there was no succession plan. And the way it was done, it kind of pitted SC candidate against, like whom they could say 33% Dalits. Okay, 33% versus the remaining 67%. Why it had to be made against? First you bring Sunil's name and then you deny him because he's a Hindu. Then you bring in two Sikh names, Sidhu and Randhawa. No. And then you say no, then you come up with this. So perception is a perception battle. So it was that SC candidate has been selected over and above this thing. Whereas it could have been done if they wanted Channi, when all the 79 MLAs said that we will accept anybody whom the High Command decides, then why didn't they announce Channi then only? It could have been done without.
When you talk, who would you put let's say, who would you not say is responsible, but who would you say High Command? Is it Mr. Rawat? Is it the Gandhi family themselves? Who was effectively, besides Mr. Channi, who was, let's say, as you mentioned earlier, the reasons, but who would you also then blame for the loss of the party?
This is the one who created this rift about Hindu-Sikh and the identity issue. This lady sits there. I've been repeatedly saying about it. And she still sits in the CWC. She still calls him an asset. So
this is the same lady who you refer to as PBI lady.
Yeah, there's no PBI, Punjabi, because of the space constraint. I couldn't write full Punjabi, but she is there for 30 years and she is the voice of Punjab there. That's it. Now today, we have a review meeting going on today in Chandigarh where 69 MLAs are here. They are meeting them in parts today. They were called from Malwa region. And one of the MLAs I just heard on the TV was saying that it is Sunil Jakhar who sunk our boat. He said that because he was denied because of being a Hindu. Okay, hang me, hang the messenger. Please shoot the messenger. I didn't say it. I only said that this denying me as a Hindu is not my doing. It is the thought process of one single person in the party. It is not the thought of or the ideology of Congress party. It is ideology of this lady sitting there. And I'm being blamed rather than holding her accountable. I'm trying to deflect the blame from Congress party that she does not represent Congress. She is one member of the Congress, which has millions and millions of leaders and workers. And she has sunk the boat. If this is the reason, then okay, shoot me. I don't mind. That's why I just stepped aside from politics. I didn't want to be part of this where I'm treated as a kind of a second-class citizen, that he cannot be a Hindu, and you want me to be a second to this fellow. No, I'm entitled to. If I have a first-class ticket, I'm entitled to the first class. Why? How can you treat me as a second-class citizen just because she has said so?
So I want to ask you, I mean, you've also seen the party for so long, and you also said you identified, let's say, the disease per se. Do you think it was a good idea to remove Captain Amarinder 4 months before the polls? Or do you think this is a step which should have taken place earlier?
Yes, it definitely should have been done earlier. Even then, I think the break
Since how long before were MLAs or leaders within the state asking for this?
This like if somebody had put the ear on the ground, it is precisely the time when Rawat came here. He came with a single-minded kind of intent to bring Sidhu as a PCC president. He put on the blinkers, didn't see here or there. I wish he had gauged the mood. If he had talked to, rather than asking Sidhu ko banaye, he should have asked what is the problem. I think a conversation, one-on-one conversation between Rahulji and Captain Amarinder Singh, or Mrs. Gandhi, if she had told Captain Saab, look, Captain Saab, these are the concerns of the MLAs, and either you please address them in a time-bound manner, otherwise we will have to look for other alternatives. I think that was enough. No change would have been necessitated. But if he had,
you're saying he wouldn't have had to be removed if those concerns were addressed.
Yes, because he also isolated himself. He was cut off. He was only dependent upon a handful of people who were saying all is hunky-dory. There's no need to do anything. So it is not, you cannot blame High Command or just him. They didn't have a vision on one fine night and they want to change it. Who would like to change? They had a very good equation with Captain Amarinder Singh. It is Captain Amarinder Singh's omissions rather than commissions which did him in. Like the MLAs became so worried about their returning to power, like they said, if it does not perform and deliver on these emotional issues, then we are done. And that's another story now that these issues are nowhere. They were nowhere. It built up a whole kind of a scenario in which all these things became irrelevant. Nobody talked about the farmers' issue, which brought down to arrogant government to their knees just in November only. And before that, there was sacrilege issue. There was this drug issue. All these things faded all of a sudden. All was that we want to change. And this need accentuated the moment we brought in our version of the change. Our version of change was Mr. Channi. And he was rejected in the process. Congress also got rejected. It was a negative vote. They didn't want to even look at his face, all his gimmicks. And he was just rubbish, this entire effort to hoodwink people.
You spoke about Mr. Sidhu right now and how Mr. Rawat came with that single-minded focus. I mean, how do you view the Congress party's prospects going forward in Punjab? You've anyway been reduced to a very few number of seats in Punjab. How would you view the Congress party's prospects if Mr. Sidhu continues as PCC chief of Punjab?
I think for a leader or somebody to lead a party which is facing such really very grave challenge, you have to carry everybody along. Not even in such a challenging situation, in any situation. A leader is somebody who could carry people along, people who are his colleagues or his associates or maybe even better than him. But for whatever reasons, they haven't had a chance. Like as long as he does not consider himself to be over and above anybody, he has to be first among equals. That mindset is lacking. His ability to carry people along. He may be best of a person, but he has not displayed, maybe whatever his reasons be, the ability to carry people along.
You also view it as a mistake to have made Mr. Sidhu the PCC chief so short before the elections?
All these changes should have, but this is what succession plan I'm talking about. The succession, if they wanted to change him and in my place, bring him as the PCC president, then they should have also ensured that he works along with Captain Amarinder Singh. The day he took oath took charge as a PCC president, he misbehaved with Captain Amarinder Singh on the stage. And it was kind of this was the start of his downfall. I think he lost 25% of his whatever image. It was dented severely.
And to just look at other incidents, because in between he also resigned. In between there was a lot of during the entire election campaign, there were pot shots between Mr. Channi and Mr. Sidhu. So in some places, Mr. Sidhu is also seen as a maverick. Do you also agree with that, in that perception and that thought process?
The decision should have been taken. They should have been told in, I think, no uncertain terms that either you behave or like I'm saying, like Captain Saab should have been put on notice. This fellow should also have been put on notice that you cannot, this is not your party. This is a party of Congress. It belongs to everybody and you have to carry everybody along. Either you behave or you make way.
And who should have done this? I mean, would you think this should have come from the Gandhi family?
This had to come from there. This, I think, this Rawat chap didn't have that kind of authority to, like, he was virtually wriggling in front of him. And I think this emboldened this chap. No, this guy was not fit to be in charge of, he was, no, I find.
You don't think Mr. Rawat is fit to be in charge?
Rawat was, no, I had refused to accept him also as my leader, like as my in charge. Sorry. He was, no, he came with a set mind and I don't know whatever his agenda otherwise was, but he is one of the major script writer for what unfolded since that he came here in September 19. That was the opportune time. Whatever had to be done, whatever decisions had to be taken, had he given proper information to Rahulji, to the High Command, I think things would have been different, but he had blinkers on, and yes, he is a major contributor. Yeah.
And just to turn the focus back to governance per se, because you actually have been, let's say, such a tall leader within the state. How do you, let's say, now see the rise of AAP in Punjab? And do you think the Delhi model, which they propagated, can work in the state?
Delhi and Punjab are two different ball games. Delhi is virtually like funded, and part of it is all, whether it's police, whether it's healthcare, whether the part of Delhi, which is NDMC, is all funded by the central government. The police itself is a huge burden on the exchequer. Here we have to handle this police, and our police is, I think they have a different attitude than Delhi. This police has tasted blood, like they were calling the shots during the dark days of terrorism. So you have to inspire confidence of your leadership. This is what Captain Saab had. No, even I don't even accept, nobody had guts to say it. I said it to Rahul Gandhi, but these people don't have the guts to say to even Channi that we don't accept you as a leader. The police would accept him as a leader if he has leadership abilities. Then it depends upon that. And the same way, the bureaucracy is also from the same mindset from the dark terrorism days. You have to inspire that, like, respect is earned. It is not like you are chief minister and the whole bureaucracy and the police will roll over for you. They won't. They will gauge the weaknesses. They are watching. He is being watched. And the ragtag collection, which they have as 92, I'm sorry to say, I don't see anything different than they have. All the 50% of all the MLAs are rejects from either Congress or BJP or Akalis. So how are they different than anybody? What stops them from behaving like Channi and set up their own shop and try to make the most while they are while the sun shines? So they have a big challenge. I don't know how far or how well he can control Mr. Kejriwal, the goings on in Punjab, though we hear Mr. Chadha is going to be based here permanently. But this is a huge task. Leave aside what is our financial position, what happens after the GST thing comes to an end, because there was 5-year period where we were getting a 14% enhancement year on year. All these things will, like, it's a big challenge. It's not an easy task. It's not Delhi. Let's say Punjab is no Delhi. They have grave challenges, but yes, there's a big opportunity. They can prove themselves. If they can prove them here, yes, they can. Then they can replicate it. Delhi cannot be compared with what is Punjab. Like, even for what was most often discussed was the education system. They have not even 3,000 schools. And here we are talking about 30,000 schools. How do you compare? Like, you make certain swimming pools in certain schools and go to town with it. Here you're talking basic. We have been over 5 years, we have hardly managed to put a decent toilet and drinking water facilities. We have painted them. They have come up smart schools also. But they are a different ball game altogether, Delhi and Punjab.
Sure. I want to go back to something you said, that whether it was Mr. Sidhu or Mr. Amarinder, or whether it was putting Mr. Sidhu in line, had to come from the Gandhi family. I want to also speak to you. Recently, the CWC meet has concluded. There have been some senior leaders who have spoken out after that. One of them is Mr. Sibal, who has said that for the party to now do well, the Gandhi family needs to step aside. Do you, let's say, echo his views? Do you agree with him, or do you disagree with him?
Well, he is a very senior leader and a very learned man on top of that. All I can say that he writes very well, he's very eloquent and is articulate. That's nobody who otherwise would pay the kind of fees he charges as a lawyer. But I don't see that all that he's saying is, I agree that party needs certain changes. But at the same time, I think one should learn, one of the first lessons, not only Congress High Command should learn, this G23 should also learn. You want a change? Do you want to do a Channi in Delhi? Do you want to bring another sort of a Channi that's when the change turns out to be worse than what you have replaced? Let them come up with a name. Let them suggest a name whom I will tell you they will be daggers drawn within themselves. Forget about the rest of the leaders. That's about the G23. What is their contribution? I'm not talking about the G23. I'm talking about the ones when they say traditional congressman. This particular traditional congressman, this Punjabi lady I'm talking about, she is the one of the most, I think she is the longest tenure in Rajya Sabha. She has been 30 years sitting there. You think anybody, at least I won't accept her. Whomsoever you want to bring in, and Mrs. Gandhi made it very clear. What I have not participated in CWC, but what I read in the report says that they offered we step aside. If they are willing to step aside, and if they let any leader which comes in, it not only has to be acceptable to them, but it has to be acceptable to people also. Let's say Mrs. Gandhi might agree that bring this lady from Punjab. She's 30 years in Rajya Sabha, has plenty of experience, and she is not Gandhi. You think I would accept her? In the same way, there are other people who have not contested a single election, who are also vociferous about changing it. Show your contribution for the party. Convince credibility. Bring a credible face. Bring a credible face and then talk about change. No, I don't want to bring another Channi there, do the Channi thing all over again. This is my apprehension. Let's not get, this seems a biased kind of a thing. This is BJP is doing, they have created, Gandhis are the one who are doing it. Yes, they can be accused of bad judge of people, like they place their trust on people who are not trustworthy. They did a Channi, they sent in this Harish Rawat, who made a mess of it. I call it this is Shade fraud, and I would say that I am very happy that this is, I consider a divine justice, that he has lost his own seat. It's good. This teaches him a lesson. This is what he has done to entire Punjab Congress and the Punjab workers who are the receiving end. But you cannot do it to Congress just because some papers right or some intellectual sitting here. You need them on board to keep this cohesion here. Otherwise, you bring in like a Sidhu here, and the Punjab Congress, you could not keep 7 leaders together. You think other this somebody else sitting in their seat. It's not a kind of a easy job. It's a crown of thorns, like to be the Congress president, and especially now. So it has to be thought out. Again, there has to be a succession plan. Whom are you bringing in? Let this G23 come up with a name. Throw it around. Let's seek views on it. So this is whom we want to put it along with, let's say, Sonia ji and with Rahul, and let him perform, and let's see how it works. First of all, his very name, how kind of a reaction it evokes. They are through. Last time also, when Rahul Gandhi had stepped aside after the 19 debacle, there were 3-4 names doing around, and I was again there. I was asked in one of the group meetings where even Ghulam Nabi Azad was there, Priyanka Gandhi was there, 2-3 others. I think Khadge Sahab was also there with in our group. And when I said, these people, these are proteges of either media houses or some money group or some corporate houses who have sent these people to study abroad. Who has paid for them? They are on the payroll of the corporate houses, or either on the payroll of some other party. How can you even? I said to help. I don't know. Then exactly the same word. I said, You accept them, propose them as leaders, or the names are floating around in newspaper. I do not accept them. We will sit at home, but will not accept them as leaders. And I'm just one. Who am I? This party is millions and millions of workers who are as anguished and as worried as anybody else, but a credible, whether it is Punjab, whether it is central government, a credible alternative. We do not want to bring another Channi at the central level. And then in Bihar, I think, or in UP, there's a saying, Aage se picha bala, ar naam bala laturi. I think then we all say now that, most of, I wonder, you haven't asked me, you think, the more often question is, Mr. Jakhar, do you think if Captain Amarinder Singh had remained, how would have been the results? I said, yes, had he been here, we would have performed much better than what we have done.
Do you think you would have won? Do you think you would have won?
Not maybe we wouldn't have formed the government, but we definitely wouldn't have been stuck at 618. We would have crossed 40 or touched 40. These are now, with the hindsight, one can be very intelligent. It's always easy to do a post-mortem than to operate to cure. But with this information now, we do not want to be caught in that kind of a situation that then we go gunning for this Channi, another replica of Channi comes there. And we say, no, Rahulji was better, by then it's too late. Now, there are systemic changes which need to be brought in, and it can be brought in. They can, like it has to be, with them on board. Sorry, I don't see Congress without Rahul, Priyanka and Mrs. Gandhi there. Sorry, this is my view. I'm entitled to my view, and I stick by it.
Since we're in post-mortem view, just last two quick questions to wrap up the interview, sir. I want to ask you now, what do you see as the corrective course for the Congress in Punjab? You're right, you said you reduced to 18 seats out of 117 strong constituency. The next 5 years, how do you see the party, let's say, becoming strong or gaining the majority it did have?
Bring in a credible face. Credibility. Credibility is the cornerstone, whether it is here, whether it is in Delhi or in Punjab. A credible leader who people would believe, he hame bechega nahi, khud bikega nahi, और पंजाब को नहीं बेचेगा for his own personal gains and benefits. That is what is required. Then only the worker will come out. They need to be reassured. They need to be kind of rejuvenated. They are totally bewildered now. They are totally
Do you think it's a trickle-down effect? It starts from the top to then come...
Now it has to start from the top. You have to bring somebody who could go. Now nobody is going there. They're all sitting here. We have such senior leaders. Out of them, half of them want to be leader of opposition. Yes, become leader of opposition. We are going to have a leader of opposition, but there are workers there. Go and meet with them. Assure them that we are still together. And togetherness, cohesiveness of the party right now is most required. You have to speak. You can fight later on. Come to power first. Come together and fight. Put a united face.
Do you think a change in the PCC chief is also required in Punjab at present?
A PCC chief, again I said, Mr. Sidhu has not displayed the ability to carry people along. That is the need of the hour. And I don't know why, like I would have said, he's a very upright man, a man of principles. I think in a simple situation like this, when you have lost the election, a resignation was the most appropriate thing, but he hasn't resigned. Maybe he has his own reasons. But he has to, anybody who comes, he or anybody else has to display, has to be at least convincingly have the ability to carry people along. Not just me, main bakriyan karti hain, main, not a leader. You have to carry people along, have to carry the different opinions with you. You have to take that criticism also. Constructive criticism is always there. You just cannot have a blinkers on like Mr. Rawat had.
Indeed. Sir, one last question. Returning to you now. You said that you're stepping away from electoral politics. And right now one doesn't know. So at present, where do you see yourself within the Punjab Congress? Would you, let's say, if you have to take the party forward, if someone turns to you, would you be open to that role?
No, I'm gone. In fact, even now that I'm talking to you, it's already, as they say, the old habits die hard. But I still have one unfinished agenda. I want Congress to be rid of this person who sowed the seed of this dissension of religious identity politics in Punjab.
That's what Soni you're talking about.
Yeah, I will not sit down till she is not only reprimanded and the Congress party is rid of her, because this kind of a thinking is detrimental. You tell me, Shaji, if I may be wrong. Her statement was a Hindu cannot be a chief minister of Punjab. If otherwise, if a Sikh cannot be made a chief minister of Punjab, where would the Sikh become a chief minister? Now, let's assume as the session is continuing, tomorrow somebody from BJP gets up and moves a resolution that let us unanimously pass a resolution that only and only a Hindu can become Prime Minister of India. Because if a Hindu cannot become a Prime Minister in India, where would a Hindu become a Prime Minister in which country? How would Congress justify that? Just tell me that. Hasn't she put Congress in a quandary? That is the basic question. Nobody dares to open their mouth about her because she has assumed the status of having a direct access to Mrs. Gandhi. She whispers in her ear because during her all this corona time, she was the only one who could approach her personally, could have a one-to-one talk with her. She is the one who sowed these seeds about she is the one who brought Channi as a leader of opposition in 2015, and he proved a disaster then, made a mockery of Congress party at that time. And she is again the same one who has connived in a way or kind of plotted in a way that there was no option left. She presented he's a Sikh also, he's a Dalit also, and Hindu cannot be a chief minister. So this kind of person sitting in CWC, I think it's detrimental for Congress. You will hear more of me on this issue. Other than that, I'm done. Maybe this is, as I said my swan song was when I handed over charge as a PCC president. I said, this is my swan song, but such are the circumstances that I'm still around. But yes, this one deed, I want to see just the back of her, that Congress sees the back of her. That's it.
Otherwise, you're not,
no.
You are not,
no. I'm neither, no, I'm not. No, I'm a congressman, I remain a congressman, but yes, I'm done with the active politics.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much, Mr. Jakhar. It's always a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you so much for your time. For more, stay tuned to ThePrint.in and follow us on our social media.